Oh, here he is.
Okay.
Chuck, that phone call, Chuck, was from me, Kevin. I was running late, but I got here quick, so.
Dave is in now.
Okay. And I'll start the meeting then.
All right.
Okay, I'd like to bring this meeting to order this is Chairman Oster speaking. I'd like to bring this meeting to order for the Town of Brunswick regular meeting of the Planning Board for Thursday, July 16, 2020. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chairman Oster speaking. Pat, would you review the etiquette right now before we do the roll call vote?
Yep. Governor Andrew Cuomo's executive order has authorized us to hold these regular meetings over the internet to facilitate that this runs smoothly and with as little technological issues as possible. We're asking the following. When not speaking, please mute your audio because there's a lot of feedback in the background when you don't. When speaking, please state your name. We need that in order to have a transcript made up. So every time you say something, start to say something, please state your name. You're encouraged to use headphones, in particular headphones with a microphone. That way you get no feedback loop are created. And if two or more of you are watching the meeting in the same room, make sure that only one person has the audio on. We can't have somebody talking and listening in the same room with their speaker open also. So that's it.
Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you. We'll do the roll call vote now. And I turn the mic over to Chuck Golden.
Hi, this is Chuck with the Planning Board attendance. Member Henderson. Member Krieger.
Member Krieger here.
Member Manello.
Member Manella here.
Chairman Oster.
Chairman Oster here.
Member Peterson. Member Peterson. Member Peterson will be noted as absent. Member Stancliffe.
Member Stancliffe here.
Member Tarbox.
Member Tarbox here.
Member Henderson is here.
That concludes the roll call attendance, Chairman.
Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you, Chuck. Just to review the agenda at this point. Number 1 is Galvin, minor subdivision. Number 2, Farrell, special use permit and site plan. Number 3, Blue Skies Towers 3 LLC and Cellco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless, special use permit and site plan update. And under new business, on deck waiver of subdivision, lot line adjustment, I believe. With that being said, the first thing on our agenda is to review and approve the transcript of of May 21st. That was the one transcript that was missing at our last meeting and was, I think, submitted right after the meeting online. So is there anyone who wishes to make any comments on that? Is there any corrections, changes, or amendments that have to be made? Chairman Oster speaking. Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the minutes as the transcript of the planning board meeting held on May 21st, 2020. Do I have a second?
Member Manella, I'll second.
Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you. All those in favor? Well, no, I have to do a roll call vote. Andy, would you do a roll call vote for me, please?
Yes, Attorney Gilchrist here. On the motion to approve the May 21 transcript, Member Henderson,
Member Henderson, aye.
Member Krieger,
Member Krieger, aye.
Member Manello,
Member Manello, aye.
Chairman Oster,
Chairman Oster, aye.
Member Peterson absent, Member Stancliffe,
Member Stancliffe, aye.
Member Tarbox.
Member Tarbox, aye.
The motion carries.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you. First on our agenda is the Gallivant subdivision. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Ryan Holbritter, who will give us an update. This has to do with wetlands delineation.
This is
He was
Member
wrong.
Stancliffe. I'll be recusing myself on this application.
Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you, Linda. Ryan, are you available?
Brian Holbritter, land surveyor here. I am available. We are currently looking at the revised map, which shows the EC wetlands that were flagged across the street on Deep Hill Road, and the 100-foot buffer, which comes across the street and into the lots 4 and 5 slightly. Even with the 50-foot setback line. The engineering firm, Advanced Engineering, continues to work on this project. They are still a ways away from having their septic designs completed and their stormwater stuff. So really not a lot to add for tonight's meeting.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you, Brian. I'm going to ask Engineer Bonesteel whether he had an opportunity to look at this drawing and if the revised drawing is satisfactory for him for the wetlands delineation.
Please, Wayne Bonesteel, Planning Board Review Engineer. I did get a chance to look at this. It all looks reasonable to me. Besides the stormwater review, that was the only other thing that was outstanding in my comments was revising the wetland buffer limit. So it all looks good to me. Just waiting on the additional plans and details for stormwater.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you, Wayne. I believe at this point, we obviously can't go any further on this, Brian, without the stormwater reports and so forth and so on. So is there anything else you wish to add to this before we move on?
Ryan Holbritter, land surveyor here. Not at this time. I will keep Chuck posted. We'll try and have some stuff ready for the next meeting. I'll keep, like I said, I'll keep Chuck posted to let him know whether we need to be on the agenda or not, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you. We will put you tentatively on the agenda for our next meeting, which is scheduled for August. Let me take a quick look here. Does anybody have a quick calendar available to them? I think it's a 3-week period, if I'm not mistaken.
It'll be August 6th. This is Pat Polito.
Okay. Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you, Pat. So August 6th, we'll tentatively put you on there. Hopefully, with that longer period of time, you'll be able to get that report in and get it to Wayne so he can take a look at it.
Chairman Oster, Attorney Gilchrist here. I just want to note for the record that the public hearing on this minor subdivision was closed, and a decision on the minor subdivision is required within 62 days unless extended on agreement with the applicant. So I think it's important to keep this on the August 6th agenda just to get an update on that to see where we are on the engineering plans. And if need be, we can entertain discussion on extending that 62-day time frame at the August 6th meeting.
This is Chairman Oxby. Thank you, Andy, for bringing that to our attention. So, Brian, I'm going to rephrase my thing. You will definitely be on the agenda for August 6th.
Brian Holbert here. Understood, thank you. And we'll get that stuff done and get it to Mr. Bonesteel for his review. Thank you.
Chairman Oster speaking, thank you. We'll go on to our next item on our agenda, which is the Farrell special use permit and site plan. We were charged basically at the last meeting with formulating a resolution to address all the issues and to respond to make comments regarding the public hearing and so forth and so on. So at this time, unless there's anything else you would wish to add on to this, Brian, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Andy Gilchrist to review the draft resolution. So Brian, do you have any other comments that you'd like to make?
Brian Holbert, land surveyor here representing Mr. Farrell. I don't have any specific additional comments or anything to add unless someone on the board has a specific question that they would like to ask either me or Mr. Farrell. He has joined the meeting here tonight. And if there's anyone on the board who has another question that they would like us to try and answer, we'd be glad to do that. Thank you.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. I will open up the floor to any member that wishes to ask a question before we get into the resolution.
This is Chuck from the building department. Pat, did you get the rendering, and were you able to put that on the screen for this meeting? It looks like this.
No, I didn't get that.
All right.
That's
For
Pat Polito.
everybody, yeah, this is Chuck again, building department. For everybody, this is a rendering of what the duplex, proposed duplex, will look like.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you. I would like to make one comment. I did receive a letter commenting on the project from a local resident. Obviously, it was received after the period of receiving those comments by writing. So for the record, it is not going to be included. The comments just briefly were addressed to me, and they were also commenting on some of the remarks that I made at the last meeting. So there isn't anything beyond that that really is of any concern. Most of the comments were duplications of previous ones made under the public hearing. Okay, hearing none, no comments from anybody else at this point. Excuse me?
I'm sorry, this is Maureen Evers. I live 379 Brunswick Road. Is there no, because the hearing is closed, is there no opportunity to respond to the clarification letter provided by Farrell Homes for the public?
This is Chairman Oster speaking. The public hearing is closed. We are not taking any more public comments at this point, and there is no general discussion with the public after that. So to answer your question, no, you would not be allowed to make any more comments at this point. Okay,
This is Member
yes.
Stancliffe. I just had a question for the applicant about possible screening of the parking or any vegetation that might be proposed in the front of the house.
Yes, we would landscape like you would normally a residential home.
Thank you.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. If there's no other comments, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Attorney Gilchrist, and he's going to review our proposal under the resolution, the draft resolution that we has composed.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Oster. Attorney Gilchrist here. First, procedurally, before the board considers taking any action on the applications, there would first need to be a determination of environmental impact under seeker. We're not there yet, but just note that the environmental assessment form was filed and is in the application materials. So if the board is going to proceed to action, your first order of action tonight is a seeker determination. Next, there are two applications pending, one for special use permit and one for site plan approval, both required for the proposed use in this zoning district under the Brunswick zoning law. The first order of business following the seeker determination would be consideration of the special use permit, as that is required before the board could act on the site plan. So based on the discussions during the review of the application, and most particularly during the last meeting, we have put together a proposed resolution in the planning board's resolution format that was forwarded to Chairman Oster and the planning board members for review. It is, as I indicate, in the planning board's general format for its resolutions. So without going through all of this, the initial recital clauses certainly goes through the procedural history of the application, both the site plan and then the subsequent special use permit application submittal. It goes through the fact that this was initially discussed in person at the meetings, and then there was a period of time when the meetings were canceled due to the coronavirus issue, and that the subsequent meetings have been done remotely pursuant to the governor's executive orders, including the public hearing on the application, which was likewise conducted remotely, again in compliance with the governor's executive order allowing public hearings on a remote basis. The applications were referred to the Rensselaer County Department of Economic Development and Planning, and their recommendation has been received, indicating that the application does not have a major impact on county plans and that local consideration shall prevail. The resolution notes that the public hearing was in fact held. Public comments were received. The public hearing was closed. The planning board did allow a period of time for the receipt of written comments on the application. Additional written comments were received by the board. All of the comments, both verbally and in writing, were addressed by the applicant through a comment response letter dated June 29th. The board considered this at its July 2nd meeting, which leads us to this evening. The board's reviewed and considered the application materials and the record of proceedings that include the public comments and the comment response letter from the applicant. The proposed resolution then goes through relevant provisions of the Brunswick Comprehensive Plan. Now, the reason that that's relevant is that one of the special use permit standards under the Brunswick zoning law for a special permit consideration is that the use shall be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. So the resolution as proposed does go through relevant provisions of the comprehensive plan pertaining to housing. These include both goals pertaining to the mix of quality housing options in the town, that they be appropriately located, that they are available to a range of income levels, that they meet the needs of existing and future town residents, that the comprehensive plan recommendations do encourage new high to medium density housing development in areas that are served by public water and or public sewer, that have convenient proximity to community resources, services, transportation, and amenities in an effort to avoid sprawl and to preserve rural character. The comprehensive plan does encourage multi-generation housing. It encourages zoning mechanisms to allow affordable housing units in the town to be constructed either through greater density or other zoning issues. but it indicates that that should occur where adequate infrastructure exists and that sites have appropriate buffering and site design requirements for off-site properties. Certainly the comprehensive plan seeks to preserve and enhance the town's existing residential neighborhoods. It then goes on to promote and accommodate a balanced mix of residential, recreational, agricultural, commercial, and industrial uses, but at the same time preserve and enhance the existing rural character of the town. The recommendations on that point include establishing a hamlet or mixed use or town center zoning district where a mix of compatible community, residential, and business uses can be accommodated, and encourage appropriate low-density conservation subdivisions in rural areas that are not served by public water or public sewer. So the town comprehensive plan does provide those backgrounds as goals and objectives for the town through its zoning law. The resolution then goes on to say that the comprehensive plan does encourage future development of quality design that would maintain and enhance community character. And again, the comprehensive plan encourages future development that minimizes negative impacts on natural resources to safeguard health, safety, and welfare of the community. Those are some background general planning concepts that are contained in the Brunswick Comprehensive Plan. Based on that comprehensive plan, the town of Brunswick did adopt the Brunswick zoning law in 2017, and the resolution goes on to review pertinent provisions of the Brunswick zoning law. So the zoning law does place this property, this southern side of Route 2 in this general location, in the R15 zoning district. It places the northerly side of Route 2 in this general location in the R25 zoning district. The Brunswick zoning law does allow two-family dwellings in the R15 zoning district. The Brunswick zoning law defines a two-family dwelling as a detached or semi-detached building where not more than two individual family or dwelling units are entirely separated by vertical walls or horizontal floors that are unpierced except for access to the outside or to a common cellar, and that a two-family dwelling shall not include accessory apartments. The Brunswick zoning law includes apartments within the term multifamily dwelling, and the Brunswick zoning law defines multifamily dwelling as a structure or group of structures, each containing 3 or more dwelling units, and occupied or designed for occupancy by 3 or more families living independently of each other. And here, multifamily dwelling may include apartments, among other things. And as indicated, the use regulations in the Brunswick zoning law does allow two-family dwellings in the R15 zoning district, but the resolution does identify that two-family dwellings are also allowed by special use permit in the R40, R25, R15, and the R9 residential districts, and are also allowed with a special use permit in the A40, the agricultural overlay, the business light overlay, and the hamlet zoning districts. The resolution reviews your special use permit standards, which you're familiar with. Resolution indicates that you've had an opportunity to review that record and to deliberate. The resolution does note for the record that one special use permit application has been filed for the construction of the 2 duplex units on 2 separate lots, and that the application does not seek approval for 4 distinct dwelling units, but rather seeks approval for 2 distinct duplex structures on 2 separate building lots. Now, based on that record, the resolution does have the planning board making certain findings based on that record and review and the proceedings on this application. I think it's important that these get reviewed in detail. So let me step through these as you've done when you've reviewed the draft resolution. The planning board makes the following findings. The project site, identified as 392 Brunswick Road and 394 Brunswick Road, is located in the R15 zoning district under the Town of Brunswick zoning law. A two-family dwelling is an allowed use in the R15 zoning district, subject to special use permit and site plan review. The Brunswick zoning law defines two-family dwelling and repeats the definition I stated earlier. The Brunswick zoning law does not require any two-family dwelling unit or duplex unit to be owner-occupied. It's important to note for the record that the definition does state that an accessory apartment is not deemed to be a duplex. And in the ordinary course, an accessory apartment is an apartment where there's an owner-occupied primary structure with an accessory rental apartment. The Brunswick zoning law includes apartments within the definition of multifamily dwelling and not within the definition of two-family dwelling. The Farrell special use permit application seeks approval for the construction of two duplex structures categorized as two-family dwellings under the Brunswick zoning law on lots located in the R15 zoning district. The proposed duplex structures are designed to have the appearance of a single-family ranch-style home with a single front entry door, which would lead into a foyer with two separate doors entering into each separate duplex unit. Each proposed structure would include two dwelling units for a total of 4 proposed dwelling units. The applicant seeks to offer all proposed dwelling units in the duplex structures as rental units at this time. Neither public water nor public sewer infrastructure is available at the project location. Private wells and private septic systems under the jurisdiction of the Rensselaer County Department of Health are proposed. The Rensselaer County Department of Health has previously granted approval for water supply and septic for a 4-bedroom home located on each lot. The applicant has stated that the water flow rate for each proposed duplex structure would be similar to the water flow requirements of a 4-bedroom home. However, it is noted that each duplex unit, while proposed for 2 bedrooms, has no occupancy limitation and could result in a 4 or more person family as tenants, which could require significantly more water supply than a single 4-bedroom home being located on each lot. The applicant states that the proposal for each duplex unit is to require 1-year lease agreements and may be an attractive residential option for people who wish to downsize from a larger home and move into a new single-level rental unit. Therefore, the proposal is not for short-term or transient renters. The proposed project may provide affordable housing units for the town of Brunswick. However, the project location does not have available public water or public sewer infrastructure, and the lot size of each lot fails to provide significant buffering to adjacent properties. The proposed duplex units meet the area and bulk requirements for structures located in the R15 zoning district. However, it is noted that the Brunswick Comprehensive Plan encourages medium-density housing in areas that are served by public water and/or public sewer, and within convenient proximity to community resources, services, transportation, and amenities to avoid sprawl and to preserve rural character. All potential traffic impacts created by the project have been reviewed by New York State DOT, and it is noted that New York State DOT has issued driveway permits for each lot onto New York State Route 2. Parking is proposed for each duplex unit in the front area of the building lot adjacent to New York State Route 2, with 2 parking spaces allotted for each duplex unit. It is noted, however, that no parking area has been allotted for any visitors, and off-street parking is not available as the project site is located adjacent to New York State Route 2, which has a speed limit of 55 miles per hour at the project location. It is also noted that the proposed parking area on the lot identified as lot number 1C is located over an easement owned by the town of Brunswick for a potential future water line extension. However, the parking area does not inhibit such water line installation, and the lot owner would be required to temporarily relocate parking on the lot in the event of future water line construction and/or repair by the town, and the lot owner would be further responsible for replacement of any paved parking area after such construction and/or repair activities are undertaken by the town. The project proposal includes a common cellar accessible by each duplex dwelling unit, which provides for adequate storage. It is also noted that the lot contains adequate area for the placement or construction of a small storage shed on the lot. Accordingly, the project should not result in any issues concerning clutter or debris on the properties. The general character of the area surrounding the project is predominantly single-family homes, but also includes a heavy commercial business operation on the southerly side of the project site and an agricultural use located on the northerly side of New York State Route 2 in proximity to the project site. So these were proposed findings that are based on the review of the application record and the proceedings. And it's going to be based on these findings that the planning board makes its determination. The proposed resolution right now in front of you does not make that determination. That's subject to planning board deliberation. But we thought that these were appropriate fact findings on which to base your decision and set forth the legal standards, both in the Brunswick zoning law for special use permits, as well as relevant provisions of the Brunswick Comprehensive Plan. And with that, I'll pass back to Chairman Oster.
Thank you. This is Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you, Attorney Gilchrist. At this point, I would like to open up the floor to comments on the resolution, the draft resolution that Andy just reviewed, whether there might be things that we might want to add or question. So at this time, I'm going to open up the floor to some members.
This is Member Henderson. Would it be possible to put this off so that we can further study Attorney Gilchrist's findings?
This is Chairman Oster speaking. That's something that we can discuss. However, I would assume that this is based on the thing that I forwarded the final draft of this thing to you this afternoon. I hope all the members got that. There is a lot. It's 9 pages long, and I know there's a lot in that. However, I do think that Attorney Gilchrist did review the draft fairly well, but we will consider that as we move along here, Don. Okay.
Okay.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. Do you have any, Don? Do you have any comments that you'd like to make, or opinions, or anything like that?
Are you still speaking to me?
Yes, I am.
Well, one of my concerns is the fact that they're on a private water and septic. They don't have that public facility. Also, I'm not convinced that it conforms to the character of the neighborhood. We did deny apartments in the past down the road a ways. Just a number of things that I'm not comfortable with at this point.
Mr. Chairman, Osh speaking. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make any comments?
This is member Tarbox. The basement's going to be one large basement for both units. And my other question was, when you go into the foyer, how many steps up to the living area? And I guess
Go ahead.
my third one would be, is it possible to put a bedroom in the basements of these units because of the large windows?
This is Chairman Osher speaking. I'm going to ask the applicant to possibly respond to those if he would.
Thank you, Mr. Oster. This is Butch Farrell. Dave, there is a, first question was how many steps up? Was that the first question? I'm not sure, but there would be approximately 5 steps up to the landing to each unit. And the same, it would go 5 steps down to the basement area. Also, the basements are isolated from each other. There is a firewall that separates the 2 basements from each other. What was your third question, Dave? I'm sorry.
I was just curious because of the large windows, it would be possible to put another bedroom in the basement.
Oh, there's possible you could do a lot of things with that basement, but that's not the intent. The intent is to utilize the basement for storage so we don't have the clutter around the perimeter of the house.
Okay, thank you.
This is Chairman Osher speaking. Any other member wish to make any comments or have any questions at this time for the applicant?
This is member Stancliffe. There was a portion of the resolution which commented on the water supply. Right now you have one proposed well for each lot. I am not sure whether we could request a bond for additional water service, or if there's a potential for the water to be inadequate to serve the two bedroom units. Having not seen, maybe the engineer has seen it, the water draw report, or Rensselaer County, if they commented on that. I don't recall seeing that. Perhaps Engineer Bonesteel has reviewed that. And then my second question was about the proposed driveway and parking area. It seems that the house was designed to mimic other houses in the area and potentially fit in with the character, but the proposed driveway and parking stalls in the front yard, being as large as they are, seem potentially out of character. And so if they were screened or divided in some way, I think that would make it more appropriate character to the neighborhood.
This is Chairman Oster. In regards to the water service and the bonding, possibly, I would ask maybe Attorney Gilchrist, is that something that we have to consider?
First, and Mr. Bonesteel will certainly weigh in on this. The water supply issues are primarily under the jurisdiction of the health department, and they'll make the assessment as to adequacy of yield. Regulatory requirements will be applied. We would have to look further into what I would call a record basis for any kind of condition concerning financial security on water supply that is not routinely done in the town of Brunswick. Certainly, I've been involved in cases with much larger subdivisions with much significantly more water drawdown. where that becomes an issue on surrounding properties. And I don't believe the record has been developed on the need for that as of now, but I'll defer to Mr. Bonesteel on the review of any water report.
Mr. Chairman,
Engineer Bonesteel. You ready for me, Russ?
Mr. Chairman, go ahead, Wayne.
The applicant did provide correspondence from the county health department on that very issue about the ability of one well to service a duplex. They did indeed confirm that it is perfectly acceptable to service a two-family with one well, as long as the flow rates are above regulatory levels, and that if there's enough storage in the well to provide enough storage in the event the flow rates are low. It's likely that these drilled wells will be deep enough to provide enough storage for 4-bedroom unit. And that as long as the flow is at least 5 gallons per minute, that is enough to provide the flow needed for each duplex. I have not seen the flow test. If I did, it was a long time ago when the subdivision was approved.
This is
Mr.
Member
Chairman.
Stancliffe. Thank you for that comment. I wasn't aware of the letter from the Rensselaer County Health Department. I'm satisfied with that response.
This is Chairman Osher speaking. Thank you, Wayne. There wasn't also a question, Linda, you had on parking, whether it could be divided up or screened or several other options. Does the applicant wish to comment on that?
Thanks, Russ. This is Butch Farrell. I don't see where putting screening up would look better than the possibility of 4 cars. We've made 4-car parking in the event that we had, 2 drivers per unit. We may not have that. So some type of screening, to me, I think would look worse than just having 4 vehicles parked there. And the vehicles will be parked, after hours. If people work during the day, there's no vehicles there during the day. So you're looking at evening hours. I think that's pretty common throughout the town that people have multiple cars. So I don't know. I can't comment further.
Mr. Chairman Oshby, thank you. I am going to take a few minutes and just express some opinions that I have about the project. And maybe after that, if other members wish to comment, that's fine. But I'm going to reflect a little bit back on my comments made at the last meeting. And I think everybody agrees that these are rental units, even by definition and proposal. And it's not just one duplex, it's 2 duplexes. So I have a tendency more to lean towards this is a small apartment complex. And I have made mention that in the past, we've had conversations with a developer down the street, for example, about building apartments on the Route 2 corridor, and several other reasons about utilities and things like that. The one that comes to my mind is the one that is in the site now that's proposed for Brunswick Acres, which is just east of Brunswick Hills and a little bit west of the Heather Ridge or Highland. I'm not sure what the exact name of the development is, just to the east of it. But they were proposing apartments through there on a preliminary presentation. We said no, and that was not something that we wanted to entertain. Even further back, there was a situation where the Ussolini group wanted to put a very large complex of senior citizen housing apartments as part of the project on Route 2. That required them to actually develop an infrastructure with a sewer line and public water sewer line to go all the way down Pinewoods Avenue, create a whole sewer district. This is obviously a much bigger project, but it does illustrate the need and pretty much a requirement to have public water and or sewers to apartment units. I'm not exactly convinced that the health department should treat this as strictly a 4-bedroom unit. I had stated before that each unit would have a kitchen. Potentially there could be 4 or more people as a family occupying each unit. There's situations where in the basement they could each have washers and dryers. I think the concentrated use there and the sewer requirements for those type of things pretty much lean towards, if you're going to do apartments or cluster housing and stuff like that on lots this size, that it's almost essential that they have public water and or the idea that this is going to be compatible with the neighborhood. I think this neighborhood has predominantly been chosen by the comprehensive plan to be single-family housing. It's supposed to be that type of development. The actual special use permits general provisions state the intent of these regulations to ensure that the development and use of the individual parcels is in harmony with the zoning law and will not have any adverse effect on adjacent lands and the immediate neighborhood or on the character of the community. I don't think that this is a place for duplexes or apartments. Based on those conclusions that I've made, I would probably vote to deny this special use permit. That's my opinion. Some of this is a subjective comments. Some of it is very objective. I mean, they call several times for, if you're going to have this, that it's probably necessary to have public utilities. There is obviously an avenue for public water through that easement. There was public water down there below at one time, and there was a decision made to disconnect it, and there was other residents down there that were provided with wells. I believe the one on lot 1A has a well also. So I think this is out of character for this street. I think it's not a very safe place to have apartments on Route 2, right on a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. So therefore, I think I would probably lean towards denying this special use permit. So with that, I've made my comments, and I wish to turn the floor over to any other members that wish to make comments as we decide on which resolution we want to do. Anyone else wish to make any comments?
Yeah, Russ, this is Member Manello. I have a question for Attorney Gilchrist. Item number 6 and item number 7. I don't know if you can expand on that a little bit. The way I interpret number 6 and number 7 is that the zoning law does not allow this application based on the fact that it says it's a 2-family dwelling. Am I understanding that correctly, Andy?
Can you repeat that question?
Number 6 on our bottom there, it says that the Brunswick zoning law includes apartments within the definition of dwelling and multifamilies, and not within the definition of 2-family dwellings.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go on to say number 7 that this application basically is categorized as a 2-family dwelling.
Right.
So
So-
doesn't that indicate that it's not allowed? Or am I missing
No,
something?
here's how I interpret that, which is the definition of multifamily dwelling in our zoning law.
Yeah.
Expressly includes apartments, but those are identified as 3 or more units.
Okay.
So how I interpret that is, in the general understanding of an apartment project, that includes 3 or more dwelling units. Now, this is a 2-family dwelling unit. It's proposing 2. Certain zoning laws, when dealing with 2-family or duplexes, are express that it requires at least 1 owner occupied and can be 1 rental, or it needs to be 2 owner occupied. But the Brunswick zoning law does not address that. It simply identifies a 2-family dwelling as 2 individual family or dwelling units and gives the physical dimensions. So by expanding on that, what I'm saying is that I don't think the Brunswick zoning law would characterize this proposal as an apartment complex, because apartment complexes under the zoning law are deemed 3 or more units. I think it is properly classified as a 2-family dwelling, and there is no requirement in the Brunswick zoning law that those 2-family units be owner occupied.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, and then I'm gonna go down the line here. Number 11, Rensselaer County Health Department has previously granted approval for water supply and septic for a 4-bedroom home located on each lot. So this has not been proposed to the health department as shown as 2 duplexes for review yet, correct?
I'm going to again defer to Engineer Bonesteel. I think, Kevin, the answer is yes, it has been, but I'll let Wayne address that.
Engineer Bonesteel, I believe that it has been submitted for review by the health department. Butch or Brian can confirm that, but they have seen this application.
Have they seen it though, Wayne, as a duplex or as 2 4-bedroom units? That's my question.
Yeah, I don't know that to be fact, no. You'd have to ask the applicant.
Can the applicant answer that?
Hi, this is Butch Farrell. The way the health department views it is they go by number of bedrooms. It was submitted as 2-bedroom units, and the septic was designed for that purpose.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. Anyone else wish to make any comments? Okay, this is Chairman Oster speaking.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Carrie Galuzzo. I live next door at 390 Brunswick Road. I don't know if we're allowed to comment still, but I'm looking at.
I'm sorry, ma'am. You're not allowed to comment. I'm sorry. The public hearing is over. That was the only time that.
I had a question on the parking spots because it looks like it's on the side of the house, not the front of the house. That's all. From what I'm looking at on my screen.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. just to answer that question, yes, they are proposed to be on the side. One of them, if you notice, 1C is into the easement, and that was what one of the stipulations was, that if the easement had to be used, that they may be out of parking and have to move the parking. But they have an easement right along there on the west side of Lot 1C. That goes all the way up to Pinewoods Avenue. So that's the only interference with the, possible interference with the parking. But to answer your question, and is that the parking is proposed to be on either side, not in front. And I will refer to Brian Holbritter to confirm that if you wish. Brian, would you like to confirm that?
Brian Holbert, land surveyor here. Yes, the driveways come in and the parking lots sit off to the side on each of the sites. Thank you.
So Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you, Brian. I hope that clears that remark up. Is there anyone on the board that has any comments or wish to have any questions before I turn this back over to Attorney Gilchrist to figure out which way we should proceed? Okay, hearing none at this point, this is Chairman Oster speaking. Andy, where are we going from this? There was at the beginning of the meeting, or the discussion, I should say, Member Henderson said that he had just got this, in which he did, he just got this draft resolution. Do you think at this point we should allow the members to possibly review that a little bit further before we make a decision?
Attorney Gilchrist here. I'm just going to give you the rules, which is the public hearing having been closed. The board has 62 days in which to render its determination. You're under no legal obligation to decide tonight. Having said that, if the board feels it's had adequate time to review the record, it's certainly entitled to act tonight. It's within your discretion if you choose to further review the record, review the proposed resolution that's been drafted and remains in draft form. That's within the discretion of the board to decide. I will note that the resolution does go through the procedure. It goes through the comprehensive plan and special use permit standards, the zoning law standards, that is, and goes through certain findings on which you base your decision. But this is a decision of the board members. We certainly have heard some concerns from a few board members and some comments from others, but ultimately, based on the review of the record and these proposed findings, and by the way, these are your findings, and if you feel they need to be amended or added to, that's well within your jurisdiction to do that as well. It'll be based on those findings that you render your determination. So, in terms of what should the board do, I'm just giving you the rules, which you do have the legal right to take additional time if you choose. If you feel that you're ready to act tonight, you can act tonight as well. And I'll just confirm for the record that the application had been referred to Rensselaer County, the planning department, and that recommendation has been received. The required public hearing has been held and closed, and the record's now fully submitted and complete, and the board will just complete its deliberation. But again, it does have time within which to act. I'll confirm the public hearing was closed on June 18th. So you would be well within the time frame if you wanted to put this on your first meeting agenda for August. But again, I'll say that if the board members are comfortable with their time to review the record and are prepared to act, you're within your right to do that as well.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. I'm going to just take a verbal straw vote right now for each one of the members. This is a question of whether we should proceed now and adopt the resolution and move forward at this meeting, or you wish to postpone it and give more time to absorb the draft resolution before we act. And that would put us on August 6th. Member Henderson, how is your feeling? Okay, Member Henderson is not available. Member Krieger.
Member Krieger, act on it.
Member Peterson is not here. Member Mianello.
I'm ready, Russ.
Member Stancliffe.
I'm ready.
Member Tarbox.
I'm ready.
Going back to Member Henderson. Are you there now?
Chairman, Member Peterson is here.
Okay, Member Peterson, how much of the conversation have you been involved with? How long have you been on?
7:05, so for the whole thing.
Okay. This is Chairman Oster. What is your decision on this, to move forward tonight or postpone it until our next meeting?
I'm ready to move forward.
Okay. And Pat, can you find out whether Member Henderson is on?
Yes, this is Pat Polito.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, do you want to act? This is Chairman Oster. Member Henderson, do you wish to act on this tonight, or do you wish to possibly have time to evaluate the draft resolution and act on it at our next meeting?
This is Member Henderson. I'm ready to act.
Okay. All right, it appears, this is Chairman Oster, it appears, Attorney Gilchrist, that we wish to move forward. How do you want to move forward on this?
Well, I would advise the board that resolution thus far simply goes through the recital clauses and makes the findings, and you'll note that it doesn't conclude anything. It indicates that based on these findings, the planning board hereby determines. And Chairman Oster, that is the work of the board, to determine whether the board seeks to grant the special use permit with conditions, or deny the special use permit based on those findings and the record. So there's still that deliberation and determination that needs to be made. And what we would need to do is then, of course, add that to this proposed resolution before action. So I think you need to have that discussion with your board on what direction they want to go with the application. And just note that, as I said earlier, prior to any action on this resolution, the board would need to complete its seeker review of the action.
This is Chairman Oster. Thank you. Just to get this ball rolling, so to speak, I am going to make a resolution that would, based on these findings, the planning board denies the special use permit for this project. I would probably require a second, and then there'll be some discussion. If we choose to do something after that, that can be withdrawn, and a new findings or a new how we're going to proceed statement can be amended. So just to get the ball rolling, and this is based on my conversation that I had with the board and at the meeting just recently, just at this meeting, that I wish to make the motion that based on these findings, the planning board denies the special use permit for this project. Do I have a second on that?
This is member-
Member Henderson, I'll second that.
This is Chairman Oster. This was seconded by Member Henderson. I would like to now put this in the discussion mode. You've heard my feelings about it, and I'm the one that made the motion. So I would like to hear from other members if they wish to proceed in this direction or would like to make another motion, at which point I may entertain the idea of withdrawing mine. So I'll go down the line. Obviously, Member Henderson has seconded, so I would ask that if he has any comments at this point, he make them.
Member Henderson, I have no more comments at this point.
Okay. Chairman Oster, Member Krieger.
Member Krieger, the only concern I have is with the water and the sewer systems.
Okay, this is Chairman Oster. Thank you. Member Manello.
Member Manello, I share your concerns, Russ. I'll reiterate some of them. You know, I'm concerned about the issue that we denied a similar, granted larger project, but apartment type dwellings we denied down the road, and I'm still not comfortable with the fact that the wells are adequate for this. I know we had during the public hearing somebody commented about their well was damaged or failed from the subdivision or the previous approved project that Farrell did above this that included these two lots. And I'm not convinced that I'm comfortable that the 4 units proposed will have adequate water and won't damage the surrounding wells to the point where it might cause them harm or cost them, money out of their pocket because of this project. And I also would agree with you on the traffic issue. Because these are apartments, there could be people that would be visiting with not adequate parking that we normally have for apartments. As you mentioned, it is a 55-mile-an-hour road. Most of our apartments in the town of Brunswick leave from a light or a more road that's conducive for that type of traffic from apartments. I am concerned that it's not in line with the rural character of that area as well. That's a concern of mine, and I think our comprehensive plan, as outlined in our proposal here, does touch on several items that this doesn't quite meet our comprehensive plan, in my view. That's where I'll leave it at that.
Chairman Oster, thank you, Kevin. Let's see who would be next. Member Peterson, do you have any comments?
My comment would be my concern with the character of the neighborhood. If this just doesn't fit in, and that's my concern.
Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you, Andy. Member Stancliffe.
Member Stancliffe, in review of the application that was submitted on March 5th, I see that attached to it was the septic sewage design for the original subdivision. Again, I echo my Member Manello's comments about the wells potentially not being adequate to serve 2 duplex units. And I don't see evidence in the record that shows otherwise. I also feel that while the buildings may look like single-family residential homes, the lots were not designed to look like single-family residential lots, and therefore the lot does not assimilate to the community very well that it's being proposed in. And I also echo the chairman's concern about parking, visitor parking, and potential inadequate parking available for tenants and their visitors.
This is Chairman Osh speaking. Thank you, Linda. Member Tarbox?
I guess I'm a little hesitant to set a precedent here, but I think that this is what the comprehensive plan wants, is to cluster development and keep people from putting single families on 10 acres, chewing up all the rural land. There's many Gen Xers in my family that are looking for a place to stay, and something like this would work. I don't think with all the stairs that it's good for a senior in advanced age, but maybe for a young family starting out, maybe it's the only way they can get into Brunswick. So I would vote positive on this. I think the county health will cover the septics and the wells, and if they don't approve it, then it will come back to us as something else.
Chairman Oster, can I make a comment? You have time to listen to my comment for a second.
Sure. I just one moment, Butch. Does that conclude the comments made by the board? I would assume it does. So go ahead, Butch.
Well, first we talk about parking. I put in 4 parking spaces. 4 parking spaces. I could make 10 parking spaces there. My idea is not to have 10 parking because I don't want that amount of population in those buildings. I can rent to who I want to rent to. As far as making the parking more accessible or less visible, we could do that with landscaping. Wells and septics are approved by the county. That's why we have those people. They require a certain gallonage or gallons per minute per well to suit that building, along with the septic designed for that building. So the members that think that that's inadequate, this is designed and required by the county. This is not something I'm just winging along. I follow all guidelines to do this. These lots are almost an acre each. So we're not squeezing something in there like an apartment complex. This is not going to be an apartment complex. I don't want it to look like that. The houses that are up above on Pinewood Avenue were spread out. I probably could have put 4 or 5 more houses squeezed into that area. I didn't. Why? Because I wanted it to blend with the area. This is not my first rodeo. I've done a couple thousand homes, and I haven't had complaints in the designs or what I put up thus far. The stairs for Mr. Tarbox, the backs of the houses are at grade level. So I appeal to seniors. Seniors can come up and they can go in through the back door, which is at grade. They don't have to come through the front door and deal with stairs. So one moment, please. You know, I've grown up in this area. I don't want it to look like an apartment complex. I want it to look and maintain that rural look. So that being said, you know, I can turn it back over to you again, and you can continue your meeting. Thank you.
This is Chairman Osh speaking. Thank you, Butch, for your comments. I appreciate those. With that being said, is there any more discussion that has to be heard on this proposal?
Would any of the members be agreeable to conditions of an approval?
This is Chairman Osser speaking. Does anyone wish to comment on Linda's question? This is Chairman Oster. I don't know what to say, Linda, except the fact that if there's nobody going to respond on that, apparently conditions are not an option at this point. I mean, if somebody wishes to make another proposal as far as a one with conditions, there's certainly, we can certainly address that. But right now, the proposal is to deny it. That's my proposal. It was seconded. There's been discussion. If somebody wishes to, if we wish to amend it or we wish to change it, I would be more than happy to withdraw that motion if there's interest in doing that. But it appears like there's not. So we can defeat that motion, which would be an approval, I guess. Could you elaborate on that vote condition if that happened, Andy?
Well, first, with the motion, well, what has been characterized as a motion, there is a resolution in front of you for action. Someone would offer the resolution, which I think based on this record, the chairman has done, and seconded the resolution, which Member Henderson has done. But again, the draft resolution in front of you made the findings and had a section pertaining to the final determination, which needed to be completed. And based on your deliberation, I would offer the following language for the board's consideration to complete the resolution. And I'd just like you to review that and consider it and make any adjustments to that as you deem fit. So that the resolution based on this deliberation, paragraph B at the end of the resolution would state, based on these findings, the planning board hereby determines that the proposed project as described in the special use permit application is inconsistent with the general character and appearance of the surrounding neighborhood, which is predominantly characterized by single-family detached residences, that the Brunswick Comprehensive Plan emphasizes the availability of public water and/or public sewer for medium-density residential development, that the Brunswick zoning law further emphasizes that the R15 zoning district is generally characterized by land uses serviced by public water and/or public sewer, and generally encompasses smaller lot residential neighborhoods, and that the proposed project is not in harmony with the general character of the existing surrounding neighborhood, that concern regarding adequacy of parking exists on the record. Bear with me. And that the special use permit application therefore fails to comply with the standards set forth at Brunswick zoning law, sections 160-65A, B, G, I, and H. Strike that I and L, and I'm going to read those to you in a moment. And therefore hereby denies the special use permit application. That would be proposed language for your consideration to complete the resolution. And I'm going to again state on the record that prior to any action on this resolution, you will need to complete your seeker review. And now I do want to review with you the standards in the special use permit section of the Brunswick zoning law that is referenced in the conclusion of the resolution I just read. So 160-65A states that the location and size of the use, the nature and intensity of the operations involved, the size of the site in relation to the use, and the location of the site with respect to existing and future streets and roads, providing access should be in harmony with the orderly development of the district. 160-65B state, the location, nature, and height of the buildings, walls, and fences, and the nature and intensity of the intended operations will not discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent land and buildings, nor impair the value thereof. 160-65G provides the character and appearance of the proposed use, buildings, structures, lighting, and/or outdoor signs shall be in general harmony with the character and appearance of the surrounding neighborhood. 160-65I states the level of municipal and other services required to support the proposed activity or use is or will be available to meet the needs of the proposed activity or use. This consideration shall include the suitability of water supply and sanitary sewage facilities to accommodate the intended use. And 160-65L states the use shall be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan and other applicable planning documents adopted by the town. And again, I'll leave that with Chairman Oster.
Chairman Ostrey, thank you, Andy. Did that clear up anybody's questions regarding how the draft resolution will be stated? Chairman Oster speaking. All right, then we can, I would assume at this point, entertain a seeker determination. So I will open up the floor for a seeker determination one way or the other. Who would like to make that? Let's not everybody jump on this at one time, you know. Okay, I will make the secret determination. A NADAC on the seeker review.
So Member Tarbach, second that.
Is there any further discussion on that? I have one question before we act on that, and this is directed at Attorney Gilchrist. Is the proposal have anything in it contradictory to a NADEC, resolution?
Mr. Chairman, you may not like this answer, but that is an issue that I'd like to further consider on this overall record, particularly in light of the resolution that the board is inclined to introduce, that has been introduced. I'd like to have the ability to review that with Planning Board Engineer Bonesteel, and I'd like to make sure that, as you suggest, we are acting on a consistent record, and I'd like the opportunity to review that with Mr. Bonesteel. So my suggestion would be that I would request the board to consider tabling any action on this and let me review that issue with Engineer Bonesteel.
This is Member Stancliffe. I'd offer the tabling of this application until the first meeting in the month of August for further review of seeker and other documentation.
Mr. Chairman, after, thank you, Linda. I think in lieu of that, I will retract my NADEC at this point, and we will table the resolution until our next meeting. This will also give some people that had some concerns about reviewing the draft a little bit more time also. So I'm going to refer to Attorney Gilchrist on his recommendation to table our motion at this point and address it at our next meeting on August 6th. Does everybody understand that? Does the applicant understand that?
Which Farrell, Chairman Oster, yes.
Chairman Osher, thank you. So with that being said, we will put the Farrell site plan and special use permit application on our next agenda, which is on August 6th. And by that time, I would assume, are you possibly going to give us a little bit of information on your findings between you and Engineer Bonesteel as far as which way that has to go?
Yes, we will certainly coordinate with you, Chairman Oster, on that.
Okay. Chairman Oster, thank you. I guess that concludes that business tonight. And we will now move on to our next agenda item.
Do we need to second the motion?
The motion to, excuse me, the motion to table?
Yes.
That's a good question. There is a motion on the floor to table the resolution and the seeker review. I'll entertain a motion to, or I'll entertain a second on that.
Member Peterson, I will second that.
Okay, we will do a roll call vote on that, please.
Attorney Gilchrist, on the motion to table consideration of the resolution until the August 6th meeting on the Farrell special use permit application. Member Henderson?
Member Henderson, aye.
Member Krieger?
Member Krieger, aye.
Member Manello?
Member Manella, aye.
Chairman Oster?
Chairman Oster, aye.
Member Peterson?
Member Peterson, aye.
Member Stancliffe?
Member Stancliffe, aye.
And Member Tarbox.
Member Tarbox, aye.
The matter is tabled until the August 6th meeting.
This is Chairman Oster, thank you. Okay, now moving forward on our agenda to the Verizon cell tower. I believe this is just a, so I'm going to turn the podium over to David Brenner, I believe.
Hi, yes, Dave Brennan with the law firm of Young Summer on behalf of the applicant. And I guess what I was hoping to do to review with the planning board this evening is we had, at our last meeting, there was a request for some additional visual information regarding potential visibility of the various alternatives, in particular, those two locations that were being proposed to be stealth monopine trees. And as a result of that request, we did put in information by letter dated June 13th, 2020. And I don't know, the one that Mr. Polito has up, if you could scroll down a little bit so I could see which one. Okay, so that letter is the June 8th letter that he has opened is our response to comments from the public hearing. Mr. LaBerge put out a letter about 2 weeks later responding to those comments, and within that there was a request for some additional information, and also noting that the visual information wasn't complete. So if possible, I'd like to go to our June, bear with me, our recent letter from July, the July 13th letter, please. That was
It's Pat
submitted.
Polito. I don't have that one. If somebody wants to email it to me, I'll put it up real quick.
Attorney Gilchrist here. Mr. Golden, I know you circulated that. Did that go to, do you have the ability to send it over to Pat?
Hi, this is Chuck with the building department. I am looking for it now.
Dave Brennan speaking. The other alternative is potentially for me to share my screen and put it up if we can't do it quickly. We'll see if Mr. Golden and Mr. Polito can do that. I don't know if I have Mr. Polito's email address.
Chairman Oster, Attorney Gilchrist here.
Sorry for the interruption there, a little technical problem.
Yep, Chairman Oster, Attorney Gilchrist here. In a very short moment, I may have to duck out of this meeting as we discussed earlier.
Okay.
Okay. But when I do leave, I'll notify you.
So Dave Brennan speaking. If we could cover two quick things before Mr. Gilchrist has to attend to that other business. One is, according to my notes, I believe the shot clock extension runs out at the end of July. We've been doing it a month at a time, and I would ask, with Mr. Gilchrist's approval, that the board agree with our consent as well to extend the shot clock for another month, because I'm certainly not expecting a decision tonight, and so I would like to cover that procedural matter. And then the other thing is, Mr. Gilchrist is still on the line, is to, in reviewing my notes, the planning board took lead agency on this matter. And so at some point as we get through, and if we determine there's enough information, I just wanted to set the stage that moving forward, it's the planning board that has to deal with a secret determination. And then I would expect it has to go to the zoning board for the use variance and any other variances, and then it would have to come back for the site plan back to the planning board. But I guess I'd like to hear from Mr. Gilchrist if he agrees with that back and forth that I just described on how you may consider things.
Attorney Gilchrist, I do concur. I think procedurally that's correct. The planning board did declare secret lead agency, so we'll need to make it secret determination before either board can act. And then in terms of the special use permitted site plan, I don't think the planning board would have jurisdiction to approve those when the use is not allowable on the property. So I concur that the zoning board would first have to consider and act on the use variance application. And if granted, the matter will come back to the planning board for final determination on the special use permitted site plan. So I concur with that procedure.
Chairman Oster, thank you, Andy. In regards to the shot clock extension, this is something that usually is taken care of by a letter. Is there any action that the board has to take tonight on that?
Attorney Gilchrist here. How we've handled those in the past is I've coordinated with both the planning board chair and the zoning board chair for their authorizations, and then execute the extension to the shot clock. And I think that procedure is adequate, Chairman.
Chairman Oster, thank you. So there, just for the benefit of the board members, there is no action that we have to take on that. This is taken care of through the chairman of the planning board and the zoning board. Okay. Okay, with that being said, do you have any of the photographs or the simulations of the tower that you're proposing? I know they were sent over to us. I didn't have the time to get through the slides to it, but would you happen to have those slides available tonight?
Dave Brennan speaking. Yes, I do.
Uh-huh.
So it looks like Mr. Polito says I can control his screen. I don't know if we want to do that or if I want to request to share my screen.
This is Pat Polito. This is Pat Polito, Dave. Do you know how to share your screen?
Dave Brennan speaking. Yes, I do, but for some reason you have it set up that I can control your screen, which is, oh, here it is, give up remote control. So I'm going to, oh, you have host disabled participant
Oh.
screen sharing.
Yeah, I might have done that when I set the meeting up.
I think you can go and click on my name and turn that control over, I believe.
I have an option to make you host. Would that be it?
I believe that's, or make me co-host. I believe will let me share my screen. Dave Brennan speaking.
Pat Polito, I'll try that.
Chuck Golden, Town of Building Department, Dave Brennan. This is the email that I believe you sent to me on Monday, July 13th.
Dave Brennan speaking.
Yep.
Correct. It was an email from Monday the 13th.
I sent that out to all members on Monday, July 13th at 4:12 p.m. And I just sent it to Pat now. And Pat was not on that list. I will make sure he is on the distribution list from here on out.
Now, Dave, if I make you host, will I take it back then afterwards?
Dave Brennan speaking. Yes, I'd have to transfer it back to you.
Okay. I believe I've done that, is Pat Polito.
Dave Brennan speaking. Yes, I can share my screen now.
There we go.
Okay. Dave Brennan speaking. So this is the text portion of my letter to the board dated July 13th, this Monday, 2020. The text of it basically explains that on June 18th, at the June 18th board meeting, the planning board had asked for some additional visual information. And so Tectonic engineers went out and flew a balloon again, 2 balloons actually. The first one was an 80-foot location, the orange balloon. That's been one of the alternatives that we've discussed all along. And then the second location, which was a red balloon, was at 90 feet. That was a recent, in the last several months, we had proposed an additional option at the top of the ridge to give us 2 options for a stealth mounted pine tree. And so I'm going to scroll down, and this, I've just expanded my screen. Can everybody still see that full sheet? Okay.
Yes.
So Dave Brennan continuing. So I'm just going to, with my cursor, I'll go around the horn here. Photo 1 is in this location, which is on Crick Road. And then there's photos 2 and 3, which are looking up across the field. 4 is at the corner of Menemsha and Crick. 5 down here is on Menemsha. And then we have photos 6, 7, 8, and 9 off of Sandcherry Lane right here. And we have photos 10 and 11 up in the north end on Coalhammer. And then we have photos 12, 13 through 17 on Golden Eagle Court, and Eagle Ridge Drive. And there's also photo 20 that is sitting up here. That was a photo from the O'Brien residence that we took in the fall. And so what was done is these additional photos were all taken, and I'll scroll through them. And then what happened is where the balloon was visible, particularly in the residential areas, we did a photo sim of those locations so that we could provide some additional viewshed information. So again, this is photo 1 from Crick Road, and it's saying this is the red balloon option 2, which is the one that is furthest south, was visible from the location. This is photo 2. Again, option 2 is visible, and in one of these we will sim it. And here's a simulation of what the tree looks in the distance. We didn't sim every balloon from Crick Road because we viewed the concern being primarily from the residential areas, and we had submitted some other sims with the first set from this area. This is the orange balloon, which is option 1. This is at the top of the hill, which has always been one of the alternatives proposed. Again, there's some visibility in the distance from Creek Road. Here we're on the corner of Crick Road and Menemsha, and this is the orange balloon that's visible. And so if it were simmed, you'd see just a little bit of the top of the tree in the distance. And again, off of Menemsha Road, kind of looking northwest, there's slight visibility above the trees. If we were to sim this, you'd see just the tip of the tree sticking above. Coming along, and we're now going to Sand Cherry Hill Lane, and we're coming up from the in front of number 9 and 11, and there's no visibility in this photo. In front of number 7 and 8, neither balloon was visible. I believe this is looking at, if I have it correct, the O'Brien residence off of the road. The balloon's not visible from this neighborhood in either location. This is going a little bit further down Sand Cherry Hill Lane. Again, neither balloon is visible. These next several photos, 2 or 3 of them are from Coalhammer. Photo 10, each of these, because of the heavy tree screening, there's no visibility from the road on Coalhammer. We next move photos 12 through, I think, 17 or 18 are the photos on, this is on Golden Eagle Court, and looking into the back. So behind in this area is the farm field going back down the hill. This particular location, there is no visibility. This location is in front of 4 Golden Eagle Court. And this is balloon 2. So this is the one that's to the south. The 90-foot balloon is visible through this gap in the trees. And what we did is we then simmed in the stealth monopine tree to show what it would look from this location. This photo 14 is in front of numbers 9, 11, and 12 Eagle Ridge Drive. This is the orange balloon. So this is the one on the northerly side of the top of the hill. It's at 80 feet, and this is what it looks like in the distance. And then this is what it looks like with a photo sim of the tree interposed into that picture. This photo is again in front of 9, 11, and 12 Eagle Ridge Drive. This, however, is the red balloon, so it's the southerly one at 90 feet, and it's visible in the tree line and above these trees. And then we photo sim in the stealth monopine tree. This is looking behind 15 Eagle Ridge Drive, which I believe is the second to last home on that street. This is the red balloon, so this would be the southerly balloon at 90 feet. And then you see the top of the tree behind the house. In this picture, it's from the front of 15 Eagle Ridge Drive. So this is going to be on the cul-de-sac. This is the house we were just in front of. This is the orange balloon in the tree line. And then the photo sim of the orange balloon in the distance. This is looking at 13 Eagle Ridge Drive. The orange balloon is the northerly site in the tree line, and then a photo simulation of that site, of that location. This is in front of 13 Eagle Ridge Drive. This is the red balloon, so it's the 90-foot balloon behind these trees. And here's the simulation. And then this photo here there's a green balloon here. That's the 150. So these were the ones that were taken in the fall. And then this is location 1, the orange balloon at 80 feet. So this is the back of the, from the backyard of the O'Brien residence. We had previously simmed this and submitted to the board, but as you recall, the branches didn't go all the way down the tree. So one point of discussion at a prior meeting was the need to adjust that. And so,
Cut out. I'm sorry, could you back up and repeat that, please?
sure. So Dave Brennan speaking again. So this, this photo 20, was taken in the fall during the initial visual resource evaluation. This balloon, this green balloon that's in this photo, was the 150-foot location. This orange balloon is the location at the top of the hill at 80 feet. And so we had submitted some initial monopine, stealth monopine photo sims about a month ago, and the branching on the stealth tree, which looked good from a variety of locations where you were seeing the top of the tree or the top half of the tree, this one is basically showing the entire height of the tower. And so as I scroll down, what happened was the original set of photo sims did not have branching going all the way down the pole or the trunk. And so in this simulation, if you were to compare it to what was submitted a month ago, brings the branching, I'll not say all the way down, but within some height of the base so that it looks, you don't see bare steel like halfway down. This is similarly a photo on the north end of the project coming from the backyard of Mr. Collins on Coalhammer Ave. Again, it was taken in the fall. This is the green balloon is the 150 location. The orange balloon is the original location at the top of the hill at 80 feet. Again, when we submitted the sim previously, the branching didn't go all the way down. And so you saw basically about roughly half of the monopole steel beneath the branching, and what we've done is resimmed it, proposing a tree that has branching going all the way down in response to those comments we received. So, Mr. Polito, can you turn back on? Do you want me to hand over control right now, or ask Mr. Oster how you want to proceed?
You can turn back over control.
Okay.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you, David. I think it would be good at this time to ask the board whether they have any questions regarding the photo sims that they just saw, whether you want to, reference any particular one that you have some concerns about. It seems to me, just before we get into discussion about it, that I think they've come a long way with these trees. It looks to me like if that's the tree simulation and what it's going to look like, it's more authentic looking than I had anticipated. But is there any more comments from the board?
This is Member Stancliffe. The two options that were presented with the monopine, the top of the balloon was flown at the top height of the tower, and the simulation was done to the top height of the tower. Is that correct?
This is Dave Brennan speaking. So the balloon was flown to the 80-foot height, but it was simmed with a little bit more height on it to make up the ornamental topper for the actual height. So it was simmed to correctly scale to what the structure would look like if it were built. And I specifically asked that question of our photo sim team to make sure that there was appropriate accommodation made for the ornamental topper. It does turn out with this particular tree, the top of the tree is not, sometimes you'd hear in the past, it's 15 feet above the top of the steel. It's reduced in this particular brand of monopine.
Member Stancliffe, thank you. I had one further question, and that was one of the views you showed, I think around 8 or 9 on Sand Cherry. There, the balloon was not visible. Was that not visible through the existing vegetation, or is it not visible at any time?
Dave Brennan speaking. Could you, I heard the question, but I want to make sure I understand it. Could you just say what you were asking again, please?
Sure. I apologize, Member Stancliffe. I apologize for not having written down the number of the view, but there was one option where you mentioned that which was right directly behind a house with a hedgerow of vegetated trees, that the balloon was not visible. And my question was, is it not visible during leaf on condition, or is it not visible during any condition?
Dave Brennan speaking. I would have to get back to you to fully and fairly answer that question. It wasn't visible certainly through the leaf on conditions. I could ask the question. So were you speaking to the ones on Golden Eagle? I just want to make sure I had the street correct that you were asking about.
I believe it was Golden Eagle.
I will submit some additional information on that. We do have some aerial photography that shows the thickness of the tree line through that area. And I believe it's already in the record, but we can highlight that in a subsequent submission. I do think my understanding, having looked at these and studied it, is that the tree line is thicker I'll call it to the north of the site. So as you get to the orange balloon location at 80 feet, and I think as you compare it to the red balloon, and everyone certainly can make their own conclusions, I think there was less visibility, significantly less to the orange balloon as compared to the red from the various locations. And certainly up in that corner, I believe the thickness of the overall vegetation screening is much thicker. That would hide it. And so there was, that's, I guess, the conclusion I reached having looked through all of these simulations.
Member Stancliffe, thank you. Those are all my comments.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. I have one question. On these poles, let's take the 80-foot monopine. The branches go down almost to the base. Are they, 10 feet above? How far are they down?
Dave Brennan speaking, I'll confirm that amount. I would say it's between 10 and 15 from the base. Typically, at the base level of a traditional monopole, there is a port where the cabling goes in, and those ports are roughly 6 feet above ground. There's we call it an ice bridge that carries the cabling from the concrete pads into the pole, although they can be at various heights. So I would say it's 6 feet above. So I would expect the branching would start in the vicinity of between 10 and 15. And certainly the photosims, as I see them, shows it about 10 feet above the ground.
Chairman Oster, thank you. One other question. The vegetation does go, the simulated vegetation does go down. It does look like it's fairly wide at the base, or pretty high. Is that true? I mean, it could be 15, 20 feet in diameter down at the bottom. Is that correct?
Dave Brennan speaking. Yes, it's correct. The photo simulations that were identified are an accurate representation. And I certainly have seen some trees in my career that are older that aren't as good looking as this one. And I did ask the question before we submitted these. I said, this particular location looks very good in the modeling, I'll call it the density of the branches. If when you order these, you can literally order them with some number of branches on them, and it ranges. I'll say it's one branch per vertical foot, you know, 2 branches per vertical foot. There's some number so that basically you can increase the branching density. And as you look at some of the older versions of these elsewhere, the branching density isn't what is being done today. And so I did stop and say, okay, I don't want to show these photos and if this is approved and built, not build something that looks like the photo sims that were submitted, because that'll be the first thing that comes out of the file will be these pictures saying you didn't deliver what you proposed. And so I confirmed that. They actually took the photo sims and went to the Stealth Monopine fabrication company to build it, and they sent the photo sims to them this week on, I think it was Monday morning after I asked the question, to confirm that this is indeed the product that would be built, and they came back and they were satisfied that they would build that.
Chairman Oster speaking. One final question, Dave. Is there a maintenance protocol on these trees? I mean, is there a life expectancy on these branches? Do they fall apart after time? Are they replaceable? Basically maintaining the integrity of the monopine. Is there a protocol on that?
Dave Brennan speaking. I would say, I don't know if there's a strict protocol. Certainly under the ANSI and tower industry standards, all of these towers that are monopoles or self-supporting are inspected every 5 years. In practice, the structure owner does a ground-based inspection on a yearly basis. I have seen some photos of a tree in Saratoga that had, I'll call it cladding around the trunk, which was basically a simulated bark that they put on. And at one point over its life, the bark started to deteriorate and they did have to go out and maintain it. But certainly I've not, in my experience, seen significant deterioration in the near term. Certainly anything exposed to the elements over a number of years could deteriorate, and certainly that's a valid point and concern. And certainly we would have no problems taking a condition of approval that sort of maintenance be defined and characterized and accomplished if there was for some reason branching that deteriorated or lost its needles or anything else like that, that it be replaced, and find a way to do that in an enforceable manner to maintain the stealth aspect of the facility. Because if it's not maintained, I can certainly appreciate that you can't let it get beat in windstorms and not fix it and let it look become an eyesore over time.
Mr. Chairman Oster, thank you, Dave. That, I would probably, entertain some type of condition based on that. I think there ought to be some type of condition on maintaining the integrity of the natural look, I guess. You've answered my questions. Does anybody? Okay, Linda, I'm sorry.
Member Stancliffe, I went through the records that you submitted, and the photo numbers that I had questions were P6, P7, P8, P9, and P12.
Dave Brennan speaking. Thank you. So those, Dave Brennan speaking, those are the Sancherry Hill Lane photos.
Member Stancliffe, if you could just put it in the record whether the visibility was due to vegetation on or off, that'd be appreciated.
Dave Brennan speaking. Absolutely, I will review that question with our engineer and put something in the record. I do believe on this side of the project, the vegetation behind these homes is even thicker, where I would say there's less likely of a chance. Other than the O'Brien house where we took the photo from, they have, whether it's through design or nature, a decent gap in the backyard where they can see out across the field. And that was the one photo we showed, photo P12 20 was from their backyard. And if you go to the aerial photos on Google Earth or something like that, you can see, well, it looks wide open. There's the photographer standing on the edge of the property. As you come back in, you can see there's, I don't know if I want to quantify it as 20 feet or so, but you can see in an aerial photo there's a gap where this photo was taken from. But other than that, the foliage is fairly thick, but I will answer that question.
This is Chairman Oster speaking. Is there any other questions for Dave regarding the photo simulations or any other questions? All right, Dave, I know that Andy, before he left, mentioned that you have some business before the zoning board before we can proceed ahead. Is there any questions that any of the members have on Ron LaBerge's public comment responses letter? And this would be dated June 15th, because we do have Ron here, I believe, don't we? Are you here, Ron?
I am here, Ron LaBerge.
I think that's why you're at our meeting tonight, to answer any questions on that. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Does any member have any questions on that? I believe this is what's being shown now on your screen. Okay.
Ron LaBerge, I believe that's actually Mr. Brennan's letter.
Dave Brennan speaking. That's correct. It's one of my letters.
This was addressed to me. This is from, oh, the one that's on the screen. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. I misunderstood. Thank you. At this point, I got a candid question to ask Dave. In your opinion, I mean, what pole? I mean, it seems to me like we're sort of like, you got an 80-foot pole, a 90-foot pole, and in generalizations. What is the preferred location of those two that Verizon is looking at?
Dave Brennan speaking. Certainly, we would accept either of them as working from an RF perspective to provide the service. And I think, and this is, I appreciate the question, because it's one of the places I wanted to take the conversation. I do think as between, I'm going to open it up to one more alternative. We had the initial alternative that we call the preferred site at 150 feet. And by way of background in history, is that was set as the preferred alternative because the town has a zoning restriction, a setback of 750 feet for the structure from any residential dwelling unit. And so the location that met that setback pushed it down the hill and kept it away from the houses by 750 feet, which is what the zoning ordinance requires. That by way of topography drove the height to 150 feet. I think from a land use perspective and siting perspective, going up to the top of the hill and driving the height down and taking advantage of the topography provides the town and the applicants with locations that can be a stealth tree. Certainly, there's basically full height views of the 150-foot tower from some of the locations, and particularly some of the backyards. And in my mind, there's simply no way, and I've seen some bad ones, and many people have probably seen some bad ones up and down, say, the Jersey Turnpike, or down in Bainbridge off of 88, where there's a tower that's too tall that they try to do as a tree. So I would submit that the 150-foot location works for us. It cannot be put as a stealth facility, and while we certainly would accept it, I do think that one of the two locations closer to the homes but at a lower height work better. as between the two at the top of the hill, I do think our original location, that was one of the alternatives that was on the lease exhibit from the beginning of the project, is preferred as to the two locations. It is 10 feet shorter in height. From my review of the various photos, it's less visible in the backyards. And I believe from my perspective, there's more vegetation. It's thicker depth of vegetation across the area in that vicinity. There's a possibility, I don't want to open up yet another option of maybe even sliding that some number of feet a little bit further north or northeast and tucking it even further into the corner. If you were to look at the aerial photos, you could even tuck it a little bit further and get it out of some of the view of the backyards, which I could review. It would probably be a 50 or 75 foot shift possibly. But I come down and looking at this and certainly would encourage and ask for any other opinions that the board has, because one of the discussions I wanted to have is are we headed towards a preferred location, if any, would be that the orange location at 80 feet in that vicinity is the best alternative, and doing it as a stealth monopine with full branching down to the 10 or so feet above ground.
Mr. Chairman Oster, thank you. With that being said, I go back to the board. Is there any other questions on that as far as possibly preferred locations that a member may have? All right. So procedurally, where are we now? We can't do anything now until you get your variance approved by the zoning board, but is that contingent on where the pole is finally located?
Dave Brennan speaking. Yeah, that's the bit of the chicken and the egg that we have going on, and adding an additional layer to that order of events is the planning board is lead agency under seeker. And so I am going to be in front of the zoning board Monday night, and I'll have a discussion with them and about their preferences, if any, and where they are. But they can't act because you're a lead agency. They can't. Well, let me take that back. I think probably they could deny if they wanted to, but they can't act to approve until there's a seeker determination. So, and that's what my exchange with Andy was earlier in the video conference was about. I think at this point, we need to winnow in on a preferred location. One of the things that goes on is, as to Mr. LaBerge's comments, there are a couple open items that we haven't done. For instance, one would be a sound analysis calculations to show that the occasional use of the generator won't impact off-site receptors. We haven't done that particular analysis yet because of the multiple locations that are going. One thing to talk about with this board possibly is whether another joint meeting at some point is the best way to handle the various procedural and substantive questions that the various boards have to have. But possibly what I would ask is I'll go to the zoning board on Monday and do this level of update. And then if I could be put on the agenda for your August 6th meeting, I can answer those additional questions, and we can take it back up at that point and see if there's any consensus developing amongst the boards.
Thank you. This is Chairman Oster. Thank you, Dave, for that. I think at this point, unless there's any member questions, it would give us an opportunity to sit there and maybe analyze the email attachment that you just, basically went through, but we could download it ourselves and take another look at that. My personal opinion is if you're going to have a tree, you know, if an 80-foot tree is probably more realistic than a 90-foot tree as a pine, even though, you know, in the area there are some pretty good sized pine trees, white pines. But my personal preference unofficially would probably be the shorter pole, the 80-footer. I like the idea that the branches extend all the way down. I've seen some of these that look so out of character. They're way too tall. They look like a Q-tip, for more or less the better description. So it sounds to me from what I'm hearing that or seeing that the 80-foot tree would probably suffice as far as a choice, I think. But I would like to have the other members take a look at the drawings again and the simulations again, and then they can make up their own mind on that also. Once again, does anybody on the board have any comments at this point or questions for David? Okay, this is Chairman Oster speaking. Thank you. I guess we will put you on the agenda for the 6th of August. In the meantime, I'm going to have conversations with Andy, and we will discuss possibly a joint meetings to go through and the approval process and so forth, the seeker review and that type of thing. I'll have to check with him on what his thoughts are on that.
Dave Brennan speaking. Absolutely, I appreciate your time. I did think of one last point to update the board on, which is in our submission previously, we'd submitted an appraisal report, and one of the comments that did come back from the board was that you were looking for some updated information that was more local to the capital region. That updated report is near final. I should be able to submit it sometime early to mid next week, so I'll get that back into the board and the consultants for review. But that is something else that is coming in advance of your next meeting.
Okay, this is Chairman Oster. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Dave Brennan, thank you all for your time this evening.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Thanks again. Okay, that concludes our regular agenda. We do have one new item under new business, and it's a waiver of subdivision submitted by Tara Patton, who I believe is Tara Ondek. Is that who I'm dealing with? Is that person here?
Hi, yes, this is Tara Ondek, formerly Tara Patton.
Okay. I just have an audio, no video. Okay. Would you like to explain to us exactly what you're doing? We can see it, obviously. The drawing is up on the screen. We have a pretty good idea what you want to do, but if you would just review that with us for the record, that would be appreciated.
Sure, this is Tara Ondek. I'm looking to transfer approximately 0.76 acres of vacant land at 5 Patton Road over to Joseph and Chris Ann Alario, who reside at 228 Pinewoods Ave. And we're doing that through a property line adjustment.
This is Chairman Oshby. Okay, Tara. So the whole parcel was sort of like a full rectangle with a small section where Patton Road is angled out. Is that correct?
This is Tara Ondek. Yes, it was basically a full rectangle.
Okay, and you do have this is Chairman Oshby, you do have a proper right-of-way into the Patton Road. There's access there. Do they intend to build a house on this particular lot? Or is this just a transfer to them, property transfer?
This is Tara Ondek. As far as I know, it's just a transfer of property. I don't think they're anticipating on doing any type of building on the land.
This is Chuck from the building department. There is a spring up above this, and the residents at 28, or was it 280, or the Ilarios were concerned about if someone did build on that, what would happen with the ditch and the catch basin and all that. That was put into that piece of property by the former owners that lived in the home that the Ilarios live in now. And so far, they've had no problems with water since that was installed. If, excuse me, they lost ownership of that property, the person would be able to do whatever with that water course that runs down there from that spring, thereby putting their property in jeopardy.
Mr. Chairman, Oster, thank you, Chuck. Now that I see where the catch basin is and so forth and so on. All right. So this is more or less exactly that, a lot line adjustment, more or less. Does any member on the board have any questions on this? This is Chairman Oster speaking. If there is none, I see no reason why we can't proceed ahead. There's no need to put this on our next meeting's agenda. This does not require a public hearing, obviously, and it seems pretty well clear cut. Is there anything that we should know about, Chuck, that has come up as far as a question on this?
No, there isn't no other information.
Okay. Then I would suggest that we proceed ahead with an approval of this. But I'm not sure, to be honest with you, whether there should be any conditions put on it. I will refer to possibly engineer bone steel on that. It's not considered going to be a building lot, so I'm not sure if there should be anything on there.
Engineer Bonesteel, I don't see any issues with the way they want to move the lot line. I don't see where that would cause any problems in surrounding properties.
This is Chairman Oster. I have to agree with you. I think this is just a safeguard measure on their part. So I think we can proceed ahead with a seeker determination on this. Would anybody like to make that determination? It's not everybody jump in at one time now. All right, I will make the seeker recommendation. I would propose a NADEC on this, and can I have a second?
Member Stankliff, second.
Is there any further discussion? Chairman Oster, is there any further discussion? Okay, Chuck, I'm going to have to ask that you do a roll call vote on these. If you could start that, please.
Roll call vote for the acceptance of the waiver at 5 Patton Road.
No, this is the seeker.
I'm sorry, the seeker. I always do that one step above. I am sorry, gentlemen.
Okay.
This is the roll call vote for the negative declaration on seeker. Member Henderson.
Aye.
Member Krieger.
Member Krieger, aye.
Member Manello.
Member Manella, aye.
Member Peterson.
Member Peterson, aye.
Member Stancliffe.
Member Stankliff, aye.
Member Tarbox.
Member Tarbox, aye.
And Chairman Oster.
Chairman Oster, aye. Now I will entertain a motion for the approval of the waiver. Does
I'll
anybody
make
wish
that
to
motion. Member Henderson, I'll make that motion.
Okay, this is Chairman Oster. Do I have a second?
Member Manella, I'll second.
We have a second with Member Manella. Any further discussion?
This is member Tarbox. I got distracted. This has city sewer and water. And you're just doing a lot line adjustment, right?
This
Mr.
is,
Chairman Oster, that's correct.
well, this is Chuck from the building department, and there is not sewer. There is city water. There is municipal water, no municipal sewer.
And the septic system is going to be well within what they're keeping.
This is Chairman Oster. Tara, could you answer that question?
This is Tara on deck. Yes, the current septic system at 5 Patton Road is approximately 15 feet, I believe, off of the west side of the house.
15 feet, okay.
The only other thing is that we have to have a copy of the map when they submit it to the county. Get a copy of the map given to the building department.
This is Chairman Oster, that's correct. I believe the questions have been, is there any other questions regarding this proposal? Okay, this is Chairman Oster. Hearing none, I'll ask that Chuck Golden, do a roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote for the acceptance of the waiver of 5 Patton Road. Member Henderson.
Member Henderson, aye.
Member Krieger.
Member Krieger, aye.
Member Manello.
Member Manello, aye.
Member Peterson.
Member Peterson, aye.
Member Stancliffe.
Member Stancliffe, aye.
Member Tarbox.
Member Tarbox, aye.
And Chairman Oster.
Chairman Oster, aye, but the condition should be that a copy of the new map be submitted to the building department. All right, that concludes that. You're all set, Tara.
This is Tara on deck. I appreciate all your time.
Sorry it took so long. Sometimes our meetings drag on a little bit longer than expected. Thank you and good luck. Okay, that concludes our new business. I don't believe we have any old business at this point. To review our agenda, we basically have the 3 items that were on our current agenda back on our agenda for our next meeting scheduled for August 6th. They include the Gallivan subdivision. This has to do with stormwater reports and so forth and so on. It also has to do with the possible extension of the shot clock, which is the 62-day period. The Farrell project site plan and special use permit is also on our agenda. And this, as you recall, also involves what the determination under the seeker. Andy and Wayne are going to have to address that. And then the Blue Sky cell tower is also on our agenda. I don't believe there's anything else that we had at prior meetings that would be included on the agenda. So with that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Excuse me, Chairman Oster. We have the David Leon development at 666 Hoosick Road would also like to come in front of the board on August 6th.
And this is Chairman Oster speaking. Is that an update report or what exactly does he want to do?
That was I think I gave you guys enough time to look over the box of documentation I gave you meeting. So he felt that he would give a month for the time of all of that documentation to hit all of your guys' mailboxes to come back in front of the board. He gave us 1 cycle, which will end up being 5 weeks for review of all that documentation.
Okay, this is Chairman Oster. Thank you. Those people that have not looked at that packet of information of about 2,000 pages, you might want to dive into that in the next 3 weeks. Is there anything else, Chuck? Okay.
That
With
was
that
all I
being-
have, Chairman Oster.
Chairman Usher, thank you. Now I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I have a
Member
motion?
Tarbox makes a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Member Stancliff will second.
Okay, I'll have Chuck do a roll call vote, please.
Member Henderson,
Member Henderson, aye.
Member Krieger,
Member Krieger, aye.
Member Manello,
Member Manello, aye.
Member Peterson, moving on, Member Stancliff,
Member Stancliff, aye.
Member Tarbox,
Member Tarbox, aye.
and Chairman Oster.
Chairman Oster, aye. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Pat, for once again being our moderator. And good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.